We are on stage now with promoter Eddie Hearn. Eddie, you weren't at the press conference yesterday, Next Gen. What's that? Are you just too big time, giving Frank Smith an opportunity?
No, booted out. Apparently, I'm not Next Gen. I mean, have you ever seen anything that's more Next Gen? Let's be honest. I guess at 44, you're no longer Next Gen. Chris Eubank's still Next Gen. He's about 38, so I don't see the problem.
Ed, when you look at this fight, this main event, there you go, we'll hand you a mic, that's a lot easier. Proper boxing fight, this, isn't it? This is one we can't wait for. For you as a fan, excited?
Old school, throwback fight, British and Commonwealth titles, you know. Darren obviously mentions he's also won these belts, but...
Did he?
Yeah, apparently. But he knows, like, that's, you know, this is what boxing used to look like in Britain before it became huge, and these international fights taking place every week. Two very good British fighters, both champions, unifying the British and Commonwealth. You know, the Next Gen side of this is Liam Dillon, who is a very good young British champion. But we also have our own favourite in Rhys Bellotti, who's been up and down, and he's very much on the up now as a two-division Commonwealth champion and looking to add the British title to his list, which for any fighter is the ultimate, really, domestically.
And what's your pick on the undercard? I mean, it's a brilliant card. Like I've said this time and time again, if you know your boxing, you know this is a brilliant card. There's so many good fights, and there are two fighters that we've not seen in a while, John Hedges, Craig Richards. Great to see them back.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I think, you know, for Cameron Vong, who is clearly... You know, one of the brightest talents in Britain right now. He has a tough step up against Ishmael Ellis, and I think that'd be a good fight. Craig Richards, you look at the shape of Boris Crichton. He's in tremendous shape. He's always.
Was you trying to compare yourself to him?
I did say it's very similar actually, but it's like you know, when Craig's been out of the ring for what, 18 months. It's a tough fight to come back into, you know, and to look good in. I think it's going to be a tough fight. Shannon Ryan's in a really good fight. Two 6-0 fighters. Hopefully Shannon's first title as well. John Hedges with a good step up, and Ibrahim Spider as well. Very tough fight against an undefeated Frenchman. So this is for us showcasing that next generation of talent. Sold out at the O2 tomorrow night. Watch it live on DAZN, and hopefully in time these guys will be emigrating to the main shows, main cards, and some future world champions for sure.
And Eddie, I believe on the Before the Bell commentary team we have the gorilla, Mr. John Ryder. What a journey you've had with him, and it's always sad, I imagine, for you when you see a fighter leaving the sport, but a journey that you and John can be proud of together.
Yeah, less sad when it's time, you know, and less sad when they've achieved so much in the sport. Financially, they're in a good place, and they can actually leave with their health, with memories, with fun and laughter in their hearts. And I think John's done it. You know, you look at those last 4 fights of his career, the Daniel Jacobs victory, the Zach Parker victory, the Canelo Alvarez fight in Guadalajara, the Jaime Munguia fight in Phoenix. Like, he's had a good run. And, you know, I think to leave when you know it's time, you know, talking about this man, the same with him. When he left, I mean, you know, after the Felix Sturm fight, he was in the bar, I see him with a pint, I looked at him, I said, that's your lot, innit? He went, oh, yes, thank you.
Do you know, the only thing is, though, John Ryder retiring now makes me feel really old, because he was the last person that I sparred with.
Well, when we first signed you, it was at the Gator Gym, and John was in the ring with Colin Lake, and Tony sort of said to us, if you've got any spaces for him on the card, he's a good... You know, and I think at that stage, with all due respect, a Southern Area Championship, maybe a British title shot, would have been a huge achievement for John. He's worked so hard. Tony's done a great job, and he's got the absolute max out of his career, and that's all you can ever ask, you know, to look at yourself in the mirror at the end of it all and say, I gave it everything, and John did that.
And he's going to be carrying on his journey in boxing.
Yeah.
The other side of the ropes, as a coach now, helping out with Tony Sims, as a voice from experience, what sort of wisdom and a character will he be in the gym for these young fighters?
Yeah, I mean, you always need a good, solid number 2. Tony's one of those trainers that he's out doing the runs at 6 o'clock in the morning, doing the hills, and you know, that's old school. But you still need a great number 2 in the gym, making sure that you can rely on somebody. And John Ryder is the guy you can always rely on. Good boxing brain, fit guy, always lived the life, and I think he's going to be a great asset to Tony Sims' gym.
Just sticking with the Matchroom Gym and Mr. Conor Benn, of course, coming up to a week on from the fight with Peter Dobson. Were you satisfied, or did you want to see more from him?
I was satisfied for him to get the rounds in. I mean, I think he is fighting guys above his weight class, really. You know, Dobson is really a 154-pounder. Orozco, who he fought previously, is really a 160-pounder. I think he's going to be a lot more effective at 147. But there's a lot of talks about the Gervonta Davis fight. It's a fight we'd love to make. It's an unexpected fight. And Conor's right up against it in that fight. But it'll be the first time in a while that he's had a big size advantage on someone. And he might need it against a pound-for-pound fighter like Gervonta Davis.
And that's a realistic fight. That could 100%. Happen, yeah.
Look, Conor wants
potentially.
Yes, Conor wants the biggest fights out there, and everybody's calling his name. So, you know, as we joked about Eubank earlier, I don't see that happening. Right. So, therefore, if he's fighting in the UK, it brings in Kell Brook, it brings in Liam Smith, 2 great fights. But now you've got the American guys calling him out. You know, Errol Spence, Gervonta Davis. We love the Maros Barros fight. It's probably our favourite, the WBC interim world champion. So, but, you know, Conor, who's had good learning fights, if you like, against a Roscoe and Dobson, he needs that big test. That's going to bring out the best performance in him, and that'll be next.
Is he kind of a dream for you in the sense that he's such a big draw? He's always going to be a big draw, and you're never going to have to go searching for those big names to fight.
Yeah, you saw that after his fight with Dobson. You know, the only tough thing is obviously getting through this final appeal after winning those 2 cases, and that's been really holding him back. You know, if you're in the UK, you can land massive fights for Conor Benn immediately. Yeah. We've had to go on the road, and those 2 fights in America have actually helped build his profile in America to the point where Tank and Devin Haney and Errol Spence, they're all criticising him, calling him out. And that's great for building the brand. Yeah. And actually, when you start thinking about Gervonta Davis against Conor Benn, it's a massive fight. You know, 2 guys with big personality, you know, 2 guys that love to fight. It's a war, and Conor would bring that energy to that fight. And Gervonta's a huge star in America, so I can see a way to find it happen, but we'll see.
I think, Eddie, when people look at Conor's career, I didn't necessarily go the traditional route, but he certainly says he's ready for everyone. Do you believe he's ready as well?
The massive steps up, Gervonta, even Barros, huge steps up to where he's been, but he's been cruising through those levels. I mean, you know, I think won most rounds against Dobson, maybe gave 2 rounds away. A Roscoe fight, again, a middleweight that he's sort of punching holes in. You'll see that power down at 147. You know, people talk about, oh, does he have the same power up at 54 and 60? You know, if you look at the Algieri knockout, Algieri's a 140 coming up to a 147. Conor's a big welterweight. You know, I think probably hydrated a little bit too much going into that last fight, and I think at 147, making the weight correctly, hydrating properly, I think he's going to be very spiteful.
I get the impression as well from me, Conor's almost like, well, look, this is boxing, this is sport. Let me test myself against the best to see how good I am.
You're 22-0. You know, at some point, you've got to roll the dice.
Yeah.
You know, against all those guys that I mentioned, he's probably the underdog, bar the Barros fight. You know, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. You know, he's ready to roll the dice, and that should be admired.
You mentioned Devin Haney a little bit earlier as well. We saw the interaction with Bill Haney with Conor after the fight, but it seems on social media really that talks of an April 20th date with Devin and Ryan Garcia are gathering momentum. Do you expect from a Matchroom perspective, if that happens, to be involved?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, Bill's been leading the charge on that with Oscar De La Hoya. We've been speaking most days, spoke last night. I think some news is hopefully imminent for boxing. You know, we're working with Bill and Devin in that fight, and you know, for me, it's the perfect fight for Devin Haney, perfect fight for Ryan Garcia, perfect fight for DAZN, perfect fight for boxing. Devin is establishing himself as the face of boxing. You know, he went to Australia, he won the Undisputed Championship, he beat Lomachenko, he moved up to 140, he beat Prograis for the WBC world title. His first defence of that is against Ryan Garcia, potentially in a super fight. So this guy is doing everything that's being asked of him in the sport. He's still a young man, and as I said, he's quickly established himself as the face of boxing. I've
seen a few rumours on social media this morning as well that perhaps Joshua Buatsi and Anthony Yarde could be fighting. I know we've seen and we've been talking about, haven't we, online? You've seen everything floating around about the 5v5 lineup, and I know Craig Richards is a name that's been put forward to potentially fight Anthony Yarde. Do you expect that to obstruct any plans?
Yeah, I think, you know, if you're talking about the 5v5 and the light heavyweight division gets selected, I'm choosing Craig Richards or potentially Callum Smith if he returns as well. And I guess Queensberry would select Anthony Yarde. So for me, I love Yarde v Richards. I actually think it's a great fight. I mean, you saw Craig Richards push Joshua Buatsi very close in a great fight. Listen, he lost 115, 113 to Dimitri Bivol.
Yeah.
You know, if he had a bit more confidence and started better in that fight, he could have beat Bivol that night. Craig Richards is right up there with all of those guys, domestically and at world level, at 175 pounds. So this was important. You know, Craig's not next gen. He is 33, I believe. But this was the date that enabled him to have that fight and jump into a massive fight in May or June. And I would love to see Yarde v Richards on the Matchroom Queensberry 5v5.
When can we expect news on the lineups?
So we're talking about the weight divisions at the moment. 2 from Matchroom, 2 from Queensberry, 1 from His Excellency. And once we announce the weight classes, we'll pick our very best available fighters from that division. No one will know those fighters, not Matchroom, not Queensberry. And there'll be a proper announcement on March the 8th, fight week for Joshua Ngannou. So you'll know the divisions, but you won't know the fighters until the press conference that week.
This has got to be right up there for you.
Yeah, we've got to win.
You don't want to lose.
We're going to make sure there's a bonus for the teams, but I think I might have to put in an individual bonus as well, because I ain't losing to Warren in the 5v5. I mean, is there a transfer window deadline once we know the weight classes? You know, it's like, you know, super bantamweight, I don't know. Their pick is Liam Davis. Eddie Hearn, can you confirm your pick? Yeah, Nair Inoue. Do you know what I mean? We just signed him in at late notice on the transfer window. So there's probably got to be a cut-off as well where you can't draft in new fighters.
Right.
But we've got enough talent between us to make a great card.
So we might be seeing you, what you're saying, outside Matchroom HQ, Harry Redknapp style.
Exactly, in the range.
Elbow,
over.
in the range. Well, we can't wait. So much to look forward to and so much to look forward to, especially on DAZN. From myself, Jamie Ward, from Darren Barker and from Mr. Eddie Hearn. We'll see you tomorrow.